I'm Lisa Thompson. I'm a strategic outreach coordinator with the Public Outreach and Education Office at the Ministry of Transportation. And today's challenge for you is, how might we influence other young people to leave the phone alone while driving? Before we go into that subject, I'd like to share some important data with you. So what you're looking at here is the last 10 years of data that we have on record. And Ontario has the lowest drinking and driving fatality rate in North America. And this is an area where we have seen relatively consistent declines in the number of fatalities for over 10 years, with nearly a 40% reduction in Ontario's drinking and driving fatality rate. Drinking drivers are a particularly high risk driving population. And while they are mostly young drivers, they are not typically teen drivers. And they also engage in other dangerous driving behaviors, for example, speeding and aggressive driving. We've focused our recent efforts at targeting specific high-risk demographics: young drivers, novice drivers, and commercial drivers. Over the last 10 years, Ontario has introduced various countermeasures, including increasing penalties related to impaired driving in an effort to reduce the rate. But even before these countermeasures were introduced in Ontario, Canada had already introduced an offense for drinking and driving back in 1969. Let's take a look at the fatalities involved with inattentive drivers. Ontario's had a ban on handheld devices while driving since 2009, but the number of inattentive fatalities has increased over that time by close to 50%. While we have seen a consistent decline in drinking and driving, we see the opposite for distracted and driving. Why might that be? One answer is that behavior change takes time. We're typically talking decades. You can influence short-term changes with laws and regulations, but in order for true acceptance across the majority of people, you need time to influence people to change. So let's think about how we feel about these two behaviors. How would you react if a friend or family member who had been drinking wanted to drive home or drive you home? What about if a friend or family member reached for their phone and started texting or looking up information on their phone while they were driving? Why is one socially unacceptable while the other is more socially acceptable? A norm represents what happens on average in a population. It is the acceptable behavior or the individual's perception of acceptable behavior in society. So while we've been hearing about the dangers of drinking and driving since 1969, we've only had distracted driving laws in Ontario since 2009. That's 4 decades longer for exposure to drinking and driving than distracted. These are considered bias, of which there are many different types. And if we see repeated examples of behavior by those that influence our behavior, such as our parents, our peers, the acceptance of the behavior can become reinforced. Given the prevalence of distracted driving, there is a strong possibility that many of us are exposed to these behaviors more frequently than other behaviors, such as drinking and driving. So it might help us to look at what we've been doing over the years to address drinking and driving, not only from a legislative perspective, but with the campaigns and advertisements that are in market. We have over 50 years of messaging on the dangers of drinking and driving. While efficacies of these campaigns differ depending on the message and the target audience, we can all likely recall a commercial or a campaign about drinking and driving. And the clear and consistent messaging on this issue has made a significant impact in the reduction of drinking and driving incidents. So my challenge to you today is to tell us how we might influence other young people to not drive distracted and to leave the phone alone while driving. Let me know. Thanks.